Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday, January 13th. Got a little pullback to start the week off, which generally we see this move, at this time of the week, right? So you either get a drop down to some recent lows, or we get a push up to the recent highs, and then you kind of get a bit of an opposition down the road in the middle of the week, right? So just going to kind of be taking a nice look here at Bitcoin. Probably Ethereum. I want to hammer on the Bitcoin dominance today, as well as the ETH versus BTC chart. Just kind of like go over when and where I think that we will truly get that next altcoin season. I think everybody, really gets on board with like thinking that there's only the altcoin season, when realistically there's multiple across many years. So I think that the next altcoin season is just kind of how at least I try to view it. And I think that we have a sizable one coming, multiple months. I think that everybody could agree months ago that that's what we were anticipating in like December time, myself included. I kind of want to pull off of a time frame, and more so just kind of look for an area on the chart on the ETH versus BTC pair, as well as the dominance. So the two of those really do align well. I do foresee, a little bit more downside potential before we get the push up in the altcoins, where we'll see those sizable moves, potentially like several months of upside kind of deal. And I'm going to cover all that this morning with you all. All right. Got some joining in, just kind of letting everybody funnel. Hope you're all doing well. Roy, good morning. Over here on TikTok, good morning to everybody over there, Twitter, wherever you all are. All right. So let's just jump on into the Bitcoin chart. So last week, here's the thing, right? Every day, every week, every month, we have different data points to, kind of consider, put into some confluences on what's relevant or not at the time. And last week was a really good one. And we're set up at the moment to pretty much do a similar situation. And it's not just necessarily last week or this week. I mean, we see these movements almost every week and every month here, right? So just kind of going back to last week while I'm waiting on a couple more to trickle in. It was just a really great example of, what I think we'll probably see, this week as well, right? So we started off last week on Monday, the 6th, around this like $98,000, $99,000 area. At the time, this was the high put in for the week before that. Right. So yeah, that was like maybe Friday. Yeah. Friday before the Monday. You started the week kind of claiming that level. We had some, upside here. This was a macro gold pocket. You had all the shorter term triggers with the sweep of the high on Monday for the reversal here. And then we had a weekly range, that basically we, had to rotate. And when I say rotate, I mean when you re-enter a range, whether it's from the downside or from the upside or the downside, at the time you're rotating, this one would have been rotating to the bottom, which just means rotate from high to low or low to high. I just say that word rotate range often. So I just want to kind of hit on the verbiage behind it. And last week we had, like I said, we had a previous week range that doesn't necessarily need to be ran, but once we lose certain levels, for example, when we came back and lost the high right here, you just have to anticipate that we're going to rotate that range to the downside. Now we had some targets in the areas along the way where we kind of have to manage as we go and see how the reaction is at the time. And just really gave us not too much. You got some small, bumps in the road along the way, but overall, we ended up rotating that range. All right. So we, got the high move up here, came back down. We had a weekly pivot, which was the average of price from last week, which is our target of that week, essentially. We've got a new one of those for us this week as well. And and then we ended up running the range. So the low for the week was 91 and some change, right? So go all the way from 102 down to 91 by, I believe that was over on Friday last week. We got down to that region. We got a little bounce and we just kind of like coasted through the weekend, right? So what is this week looking like? All right. So you'll see I got a boxed area down below us, which still is a major, I'd say major support going into the rest of this quarter. Okay. So for just how we're looking at the average of last week being a target for this week, we're looking at the average of last quarter being a target for this quarter. And when I say target, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end all be all. Like we come down, we tag that level and it's just, off to the races. However, the higher the time frame, we do see a lot of like reversals like that do occur. But I bring that up more so to say that it's just highly likely that we make our way down to 86,000 sometime between now and the end of March of this year. Doesn't necessarily have to, obviously, but it's just the probabilities at hand. Obviously, while we're trading at like 90K, that doesn't seem so crazy at the moment. When you're trading at 102, it seems like you're just, not even going to come down to that at all, right? But, here we are. So it's just a level you got to be aware of. And I think that we're in position to do one of two things. And it's kind of similar to what we did in October if we do make our way down first. All right. And it's just, I'll go back to that little time frame really quickly, right? So October hit. And where are we at? We were here. You start off October, Q4 was going to be this huge blast off, which in theory it was at the end of it. But you had this, nice little run up here, and you get these ABC corrections, right? Where you get these little waves where you come down, you get a push back up. Probably this was also probably golden pocket. Sure was, right? So you got a run right back into the gold pocket here. And then we made our way down to $59,000, which was not necessarily a quarterly pivot, but this was a quarterly naked point of control. So I remember targeting that exact level, which ended up being the last low before the run up. I was running around from a hurricane, dealing with a hurricane back in that time frame. But anyways, yeah. So we had this little ABC correction, and then you just jetted out of there, right? So that's one scenario where I think we're kind of set up for a similar move here, right? If you just kind of zoom it in. You've almost got a larger scale version of that, right? Where we got this huge move up. You can really, I'd say you almost just look at it from just the 59K, right? So you got this move up right here. We've got our little A wave, potentially the B wave. And if we do make our way down, take all the lows, similar to what we did over here, right? You can see how we came down and took all those lows right into that key level. That would be my next major, I'm not necessarily buying, I wouldn't go crazy on, and this is the thing, right? It's just it's such an interesting area because it's so hard to come in and buy up at least Bitcoin at those levels. And more so for me, I'd be looking into some altcoins, take that for whatever it's worth for yourself, obviously. And we all know that if we see some more downside on Bitcoin, we'll get the altcoins a little more discounts, I guess you could say. But if this is to come through and we come through, take these lows officially and meet this region here before heading higher, that'd be a nice little ABC pattern. Very corrective, very normal, right? You come back down to the quarterly VWAP close over here as well. I just noticed that down there. But yeah, then you look for the move up. So I do think that the next really likely or next best area to look for is going to be this region down here. And that's just the best, right? It doesn't mean that this area we're at right now isn't offering at least a range low, run back to the range high type of situation. Getting trading view alerts here. All right. So yeah, we've got a big region to be aware of, right? And it may not get hit right now. So that's where we just, everything kind of funnels down to. But if it does, it's not an area to be afraid of. This is a very likely region. People maybe look at it as coming back to these areas here, whatever the case may be. You can see very clearly that we've got a pretty simple range here with all the lows coming in right here. So coming down below that is just the normal, I'd call it a liquidity sweep at this point, right? So, but you return to a high time frame average. Like I said, maybe you got a ABC correction pattern here before the next move up. And that's just the reality is we got to be aware of that 87 and 86K area getting met, right? So locally, however, let's just take a look now and see what we got. So last week I'd mentioned, right, how we came up, took previous week high, we rotated that last week's range. So what does the weekly range look like for this week? All right. So we started off today. Let's just kind of get our key regions all in one screen here. You started off today dropping down under the previous week low. All right. So essentially exactly what we did last week, but on the high, we kind of claimed the previous high. We took a little jaunt to the upside. Right now we're claiming to the downside, losing essentially the last low. All right. You're holding it pretty well. And we also swept the December low very, very slightly. So meaning now for the whole month of December and all the way up till now, all the, very, very recent lows have been, taken out. So very so slightly though, right? So that's just kind of something to note here. A move down to this region would really, hurt some feelings. I think that would really take out, anybody with that nice, well-rounded, 90K stop loss, and then also just the psychology around 90K, right? If we lose 90,000, it gets very fearsome for many and all that good stuff. So without looking at rounded numbers and anything like that, once again, just looking at the high time frame averages, which is very similar to looking at a 50-day moving average or a 200-day. You don't look at, the rounded number around it. You just look at what that is, right? So, and that area comes in at 87-ish, 86. So that's just that. For now, though, what do we got, right? A big key at the moment is going to be the line in the sand for any more upside right now is going to be the previous week low. It's just as simple as that. And that level does come in at 91, 135. All right. So we really want to see Bitcoin get back above that. And then we'd probably get at least a run back up to, kind of run these highs right here. And then also this is our weekly pivot. All right. So this is our weekly target for the week. Is the average of last week. It's pretty much actually the average of the week before that as well. It was almost the exact same. And that number for anybody not watching and just listening is 96,129. So at some point this week, I imagine we run it back to that region. Whether we drop down to 86 first and come up, right? That's just a highly likely area. It's not a guarantee, but it's just a likely region. So, for me, when I'm building out my trade cases and strategy for the week, I'll start looking for key levels to either reclaim or look for those levels to get met to the downside for that next area to either, it's going to depend on what you're doing, right? So for me, sometimes I don't even look at some altcoins where their key levels will be, because it's just, if Bitcoin's hitting key levels, I'll just go in on an altcoin, right? That I've been waiting to get, which we're going to cover some like virtuals, has been getting down to, really took a hit like about 50%. Everything. It's probably taking a decent, 15, 20% haircut right now. So we'll take a look at them all. And yeah, so, but for me, I'm looking to reclaim for Bitcoin and for the whole market, obviously, to kind of get a little bounce here is going to be that 91, 135 so far. Not doing the best job. But once again, we have all types of different time frames to kind of look to. So on the higher outlook, it's 91, 135. We want to start closing at least, some hourlies above that. When we start looking more, into this region here, it's interesting to note that, okay, stock market technically just opened, I suppose, opening bell wise, 9:30 a.m. Eastern here. But when you look at some of this in the form of session data, so not only can we look at weekly data, monthly, daily, we can break it down all the way to the sessions, right? So any kind of a Forex trader is used to these, where you're looking at the London or Europe, session, as well as the Asia session, and now you got the New York session in play, right? So when looking at that, right, we've got our very local, this is super local stuff, right? So, obviously losing the December low at this point, aside from just kind of wicking down to it again, you got to imagine 86 and 87 are on the table. Until then, short term here, we have the London low, which has just been kind of knocked out here as well. We're kind of flirting with it at the moment, but same thing, right? We want to see that London low kind of held, take back that previous week low, and then you can actually look back to, before we look for the weekly pivot, you can look to that London high, right? So once, just similar, like if we take yesterday's low, we run yesterday's high, last month's low, we run the last month's high, in general. These session datas are the same, right? So when we come down the London session, especially when you come down and take that one, because that's our most latest session. So it goes Asia, then London, and then New York. So this is the most recent one here. We're essentially just kind of stopping out anybody in the London session for their longs, right? And we'll look to hold that level, which we're doing essentially right now. And for anyone, once again, not listening, I say that because I know a lot of people are like treating this almost like a podcast sometimes. So I'm trying to, remember that 90,000, what is that? 90,000, like 718 is essentially that London session low, right? So we're kind of just flirting around that right now. This is the 15-minute time frame. This is very, low time frame stuff. But I like to, kind of be active. Usually I'm active in the group at this time, because like the New York session just fires off the most volume, right? We get the most amount of moves during the day, during the New York session, right? unfortunately for some people around the world who are sleeping, just like sometimes when we're sleeping and the Asia session takes off a little bit like it did last night. All right, coming back down towards the lows here. Yeah, for any upside right now, you really want to get back at least above that 90,700, 91,135. Right now, we're coming down, just kind of breaking lower at the moment. So as long as we remain down here, got to imagine 86 and 87 are on the table. But you will get these occasional little sweeps, right? So just kind of seeing how things play out right here. I was going to switch it over to some altcoins and stuff, but let's just kind of see how Bitcoin does here just for a minute. If anybody's got any questions or any requests, go ahead and drop them in the chat here. I'm trying to make sure that this is all staying pretty current there. Roy, my friend, how are you today? Let's get this over. I know. Slow burns, my friend. Slow burns. Slow burns. And the sad part is that, it's no guarantee that this is, our low area. So we have to see how things kind of bounce. But this would be the next, just the best region, right? Yeah, it looks like she's going for it. So and you got ETH with the melt. Let's see here. So ETH had a bat pattern that fired off back up here. And I was going to see if we were going to put in an alt bat. I guess which we technically did. Yeah. these were the targets from that. I was hoping to get a little push up to that 38, man. Front ran me by such a little bit, 3%. And in hindsight, such a simple, just same as Bitcoin, right? Just a nice drop back to the gold pocket. Like I said, for me, was holding a little bit longer here. I did get stopped on this ETH long today, sadly, but nice bag of SHIB. Any insight? I'll take a look. Yeah, see if we end up coming. If Bitcoin continues down to 87, I mean, I imagine that this box is where we're going for ETH. Got a couple of volume targets down here. B point of this target and the gold pocket would be next on this bat. Bitcoin's looking like a little bit of a bounce here. Let's see. All right. Might be sweeping low here and just run it back here, right? All right. My trading view is now pulling up all. Oh boy. Sometimes trading view just erases everything. But this is potentially a nice little sweep right here. SFP, what it would be considered, right? So aside from, once again, front running that 87K, okay, I guess trading view is not going to pull up any of my levels right now. So, all right, so now you just got all the lows at this point, right? So we'll see how this candle closes here, but talking about a pretty decent swing right there of the December low, and then just coming down and just taking all this, right? So once again, just kind of how we started off the stream, we just had like just ever so slightly, just kind of kissed that little tip right there. And now we've, really took a dump, not a dump, but a nice drop into that region, right? So you're talking almost 1.5% from that low. So we'll see how this candle closes here. Really looking to hold that level right here, which is once again 90,000, 290, which currently we're above. I'm on a 4-hour time frame, so let's zoom it into the 15-minute here. All right, so you got a really, really nice swing failure right here, right? So that's just like we saw last week at the Monday high, right? If it zoomed in really nicely. Once again, all my levels have disappeared from TradingView, but we'll keep it going. You had a super, slight little high put in right here, and then we swept it on a small time frame, even, right? 15-minute, 30-minute, all the lower times. You just came up, took it. Breakout traders come in. Anyone that was getting short, granted, not a lot, obviously, but got stopped out before the move, and then vice versa on big moves like this, where once again, just got to really see how it plays out here. You got a situation now where anyone that's gotten long, put it in. And once again, unfortunately, this market is run on leverage. Obviously, most people with spot positions are not just YOLOing in and out, or getting stopped out even of their spot bags. Most people are just holding, right? So, but anybody that was getting in leverage positions, generally they're not getting in at these lows, right? So on top of not getting in right at these key regions, they're waiting for that little bit of a push up, the little bit of more um, confirmation, I guess you could say, of if they're going to assume the move will continue up, whatever. And they get into long trades, probably in the middle areas here. Some even probably at highs, right? More than anything. And then what are you going to put their stop losses, right? Generally it's below the lows, and then if not stop, it's liquidations, right? So that's 10% from that region down, and let's just say in this area here you're talking 6 and 5%, which anybody with like 20x that just are going to go on liquidation only. They're going to how you like the music? I actually picked this up from Jason Casper. Shout out to him. It's like a royalty free on YouTube. It's cool. 100 thieves, 100 thieves, something. 100 thieves, hype tracks, volume 2. That's what it is. It's like 4 hours. It is pretty good. Yeah, I would say at the moment right now, we're looking like we're just swept that low. And I would look for that run for like weekly pivot, which we covered earlier today, right? Which is sitting at about 90, right above these highs right here, sitting about back to like 96. And then we'll see how, everything kind of unfolds here. The previous week low is sitting right here. So still kind of have to, we want to see that kind of reclaimed. But so far, here's the thing too, right? When we're looking at, certain levels. And what I mean by that is like, sorry, just making sure, still running here on TikTok. Looks pretty good. Okay. When we're looking at things like the London sessions, super locally, or even the previous day or the previous week and what have you, those ranges and that data essentially is more relevant when they haven't been ran, right? So for right now, if we just started off and we just, been ranging around, last week's range already, not necessarily the best look if we like already took the previous week high and then we came back down to the previous week low, like this early in the week, like something like that. I'd probably gauge in more of the fashion, like we took the highs and we're about to just, drop. This, on the other hand, we're starting out, and that's exactly what we did last week, by the way. This, on the other hand, at the moment, we just took the lows. So once again, you're talking, it's the 13th of January. So for the last 6 weeks, at least, in the sense of a month, but we can even look farther than that. This actually takes us back to, January 26th, all the way back to really January 19th. So this is almost 2 months of lows that we just took out. Right. I don't know what the news is right now. And that's the reason I don't care for it. I don't look to it. Reason being is that if there is some news going on today, first off, I know my key levels at this point. If we lose this region, it's 86 and 87. And that's all I need. I don't need to like kind of pay attention for a news catalyst, because a lot of times we'll get a negative one. You'll get a small move like this to just kind of take the low, and then we'll reverse, right? And then everybody's just like, oh, well, whatever. It's like, and that's just me. I don't look to the news as much as most. So I don't know what's going on. And I bring that up in the sense of like right now, if there was a negative news catalyst that kind of dropped, mind you, stock market just opened. So I don't know if like Nvidia is tanking or something like that, but these little wicks are usually paired with that. So anyone that's been either stopped out of their position or anything like that, they're going to look to actually enter right here now short, right? Thinking that, all right, we're going back, the going echo chamber is the CME gap back at 77K and what have you. We may get there, right? It's just for now. Personally, I'm still just, treating this as a really decent range. And realistically, Bitcoin price and really everything ranges more times than not. At some point we're going to break this. And yes, like somebody that's trying to catch along at the low right here, they're going to get stopped on that. Versus, and same thing here, anybody trying to catch a short at the high, if we break higher, you're going to get stopped on that. But look how many times, you would catch some of these moves. And obviously I know everyone's not catching these perfectly. But like I said, like it's the ranging is just miserable at times for many. And I get that. It's definitely a time where, I know people always say like zoom out type of deal. And I would agree to that, right? Like, you just kind of look at where things are here. Obviously, we've made some really great progress, but I point this out at all times, right? The ranges are brutal while you're going through them if you're not, strategizing and kind of coming up with a game plan here. And I think, and we're obviously in a similar situation right here, right? So, but yeah, let's zoom out. All right, enough about Bitcoin. Oh, I got my levels back. Nice. Don't think we're heading to that 87 at the moment, folks. I think we just swept the lows really nicely, and I think she is gonna give us a run here for the money. Let me see something really quickly. Okay, where are we at here? Someone asked for Shiba. ETH BTC, not ETC. Okay. Yeah, we're definitely going to look at ETH BTC because I want to kind of go over my thoughts on when the next true altcoin season will be, and not necessarily in a time sense, but like on the chart, I guess, right? So for me, won't see. I was, also one who anticipated December time to offer up some movement here for us. And sorry, I just got like 3 different devices going. All right, let's finish up with Bitcoin really quickly. So I just want to kind of cap this off, right? So now I got my levels back on the chart. So got to be afraid, not afraid, but got to be aware that 86K is likely in this quarter, right? So that is just something we got to be aware of here as time progresses. At the moment, though, we just swept that really nicely. And like I said, I'm sure a ton of people probably just piled in to shorts, at the low, assuming, once again, if you're breakout trading or if you're looking for support and resistance to get lost, and that's not the worst. It doesn't not make sense, I guess. Like I could see where people would be drawn to that. And then, like I said, I don't know what the news is right now. So if any kind of news catalyst came out negatively, I could see where people are like, all right, you know what, I'm going to short 90K, to 77. That's a good risk to reward in my eyes. But granted, even on this 15 and 30 minute candle now, what time is it? It's about to be an hourly. You got a monster sweep coming in right now. What's the 4-hour time frame closing in on? That closes in an hour. So here in a hot second, though, you'll have an hourly wick below all the lows. That is generally a long trigger all day, every day, right? So I would imagine we're going to at least run London low back to London high, which is once again 94K, Asia high, front ran the weekly pivot. So I imagine that's also an easy, target for potentially today, even right back to like 96K. And I bring that up more so because of the session data, right? So you got London highs, Asia highs, like right below that, right above that today. Daily opens probably right there. So yeah, weekly pivot, 96K is, on the docket for today, I think, as long as we're holding here, which once again, this is what you want to see for a long, right? It's a nice sweep, get everybody fearful, come back up, just run it, right? So we'll see how it goes. This is still the key level. That previous week low is still our line in the sand for holding. We want to see us closing at least this hourly, the next one coming up, and hopefully the 4-hour. And then at that point, you're looking at previous week high is kind of a more midterm target for the week. I'd probably imagine we get back to that if we're holding the low. Maybe like, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, all coins get a nice run, all the good stuff, right? ETH just dropped below 3K with a big wick here too, right? So while I pulled up that little bat area, we still could make our way down to there at some point here, but short term, and then we get a run back up. Weekly pivot also for ETH. Current price, by the way, for anyone listening in, is 3,040. We just wicked all the way down to 2,900. And the weekly target for ETH for this week is 3,390. All right, so that's a solid 10% move just about from where we are right now. For me, I'd like to get back above this weekly level, the 30.78, for some more confirmation right here for any upside, and then I'd at least target back to there. And then, like I said, it's all kind of has to merge and mesh well with Bitcoin here. XRP is one that has actually held up pretty damn well. I got stopped out of a Bitcoin long and a ETH long this overnight, basically. Bitcoin, I had already taken some profits, pretty much locked in pretty decently at 102 last week, and I just kind of let it stop me out a little bit above my entry. Maybe it was break even. So I didn't necessarily lose on that one. I did end up losing on ETH. I was holding out, and it happens to everybody, obviously, right? So I was holding out for that extra 3%, for that 3,800, and came back on me, which whatever. Closed it out back at 3,200-ish, 3,250, whatever it ended up being, and then obviously that protected me from the drop to 2,900, obviously. But XRP, I'm still in my long, and it's still holding well. I already took profit as well at 241, entered down here at the 201 sweep, right? So, it's really interesting. Still looking for that $3 potential move here, but it really begins with claiming 256. We got up to it last night, or I think it was yesterday, some point, which was a daily level. Once again, not sure what's going on with TradingView, but all the drawings, I guess, are not showing up right now, which is fine. But I was looking for, still am, I guess, living above 256 on XRP. I'm still looking for that 318-ish. The big level to be aware of, however, for this quarter is the quarterly average as well, right? So just something to be aware of, and that sits down here at like 179. All right, and that's just below all these lows here. Right. So if things really get squirrely with Bitcoin, obviously, we could see that. It's not really that crazy of a drop for, XRP. It's 25%, which sucks to see. But obviously, like most coins around us, just did that probably over the last day and a half here. I think even ETH just dropped like 20% from start to finish. But yeah, I mean, XRP is pretty much holding up pretty well. Let's just see how the range is here. So you've got a really nice range. And once again, XRP probably trades top tier, in my opinion. I've traded XRP over the last years multiple times. And not necessarily like day trades like this. I've got one right now. It's a swing trade. And that's really what I kind of go for with XRP. I'm not necessarily looking at day trade it by any means. Really, Bitcoin and ETH are my day traders. It's the one that kind of will get in, to look for 2 and 3% moves, right? On the day. And the reason being is just generally speaking, you don't get 10 and 15% drops or, pumps out of Bitcoin often, at least, right? The altcoins, on the other hand, it's like you don't need to day trade them, right? Like they move so vastly. This is a 10% move since basically yesterday. This was last Wednesday, 18% move in a few days. I mean, these are just huge moves that you just get off and on. But this is a really good example here, right? Range highs, range lows. It's just at some point one of these is going to break. So, taking a short at the high, longs at the lows type of deal. Probably getting to a point where you don't want to be playing around with them too much here. Because at some point, I think the next hit or two, probably will offer up a nice little break, whether it's down to, that 180, right? Or it's up to the 3 plus, 313. So I will point out we do have a few, nice little uptrend, I guess, going up here, right? You got some nice higher lows, right? You got locally, we've got a higher high, higher low, higher high. Depends on where we come in right here, potentially a higher low. So you're putting in these little sneaky, cheeky higher lows and higher highs, which tend to, kind of offer up some continuation. So we'll be looking for just, paying attention here. Either way, I'm not in a bad spot here on my short-term play. I did take a swing trade on XRP, right? So entry was at 201, I believe. Stop loss is at 203 at this point. So it's above my entry. 50 or 60% take profit was at 241 when we first hit it back here. And the rest I'm letting ride till about $3.18. Probably will close it out before that if we get there, right? So, and then at that point, yeah, like even if we do see a move up to, move up. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Everything's back. This is a really wonky pattern at this point. So I'm not necessarily super married to this, but this is by no means is valid because it's not completed yet. So it's just something I'm keeping an eye out for if we do get to this region and catch a rejection, right? So the all-time high sits at 331. If we run to 318 and we start to pull back a little bit, I would give this, potential harmonic pattern. This is a butterfly. This is a bearish pattern, actually, if we complete it. And I always refer to this as like, you can't like be trading or even like basing anything off of this until we get to this level. It's like looking at a potential head and shoulders pattern, and then like before the last shoulders form, just assuming you're gonna get it and it's gonna break and all that, right? You just can't do that, right? We have to. A lot of these will fail. This is just a potential idea that I'm putting out here. So when I do get there, I'm not scrambling to believe or feel like, oh, XRP is going for $5 right now, I'm jumping in. Like that would be probably the worst time to do so. And very much the case here is that, even if we do get a push up to this 318, the targets for this are, back to this range. And then I would honestly say if we got a decent rejection up here, we'd probably pull it back to that 180 area if we don't hit it first. So that's just kind of something I'm keeping in my mind for XRP over the coming weeks. Man, Phantom. I don't know if it got pulled from there. If it got renamed, I think. Can't keep up with all these bad boys. Man, whiff going for that shark target down at 60 cents, isn't it? I'm looking for Shiba, by the way, for somebody. Let me just look at Trump real quick, see if this is doing anything. Shiba. All right, so this is what I had last on Shiba. What was I looking at here? Probably a gold pocket got hit. Did. All right, so Shiba, obviously at the mercy of Bitcoin right now as well, right? We got to really pay attention to see if we're going to break that low and head for 87. Or if we're going to run this thing back, but you are at support, right? So you got this last little move up here, had our yearly level we were targeting, perfect rejection from it. And if you were to take a Fibonacci retracement, which for anyone that doesn't know what that is, if you could take any section of price, right? So for example, I'm just going to take this, right? So if you were to take this area of the chart, and I say like that because when you start breaking up into other areas, generally when you see a gold pocket retracement, it's a 61 to 65% retracement. But when I say that, people start thinking like, well, the price did not come back. You didn't see whatever pull back 65%. Well, it's not like of the total price, it's of the area you're looking at. So of this impulse move, right? If I was to say this is basically starting at 0, and if we were to retrace this move 100%, it would be all the way back to the bottom, right? You'd have 100 down here. Your 50 line would be right in the middle, right? And you got 25%, 50, 75%, and so on. And then you have some really key Fibonacci retracement levels, one being the 382. So that means 38.2%. So from this level to the 382, right, which is where we pulled back, originally right here, That was a 38.2% pullback of this whole move, not of the whole price action. Granted, this probably was actually close to that, 26%, just because it's pretty much off the low. But yeah, just wanted to I like to drop that little tidbit. So the gold pocket is 61.8 to 65% retracement of a move. All right. So that is where we're sitting right now. Granted, it's not down 60%, but it is probably close to that because this is pretty much the whole move here. It's about 46% down here. But yeah, you're sitting at the local support. So it is the area where I'd look to at the moment, right, for some continuation back up, right? And same deal here. You got some lows, highs, higher low, higher high, higher low here than this region here, right? So it's just kind of, as long as we're like above this region, you can kind of anticipate this to continue up. When you start losing that is when you kind of have to start, looking at this as maybe a new downtrend is forming, and then we have to start looking at some lows again, right? So, but you can't get too bearish at support, but it does, everything kind of has to all merge and mesh together. What's going on, Sean? Brian Backman. So yeah, we're at some support right here, and major targets for SHIB. I'm anticipating we see a move. Granted, like I said, we could very well range around in this region still. All right, so we might have some more sideways, might still have some more down. Right, it's just going to have to depend. And what I bring that up is going to be, I'm going to touch on the ETH versus BTC chart here in a second, and that's kind of align with that idea a little bit. So, but yeah, we're at support. If we come back and we claim these regions here, you can almost see, cup and handle, rounded bottom. You can break this up however you'd like. Let me just see what the measured move of that would be. Just interested. You do have the gold pocket is what I'm targeting up here. Anyways, is a trend-based gold pocket up here. So just as we can get the retracements for 61 to 65% down, you can actually expand from the high or from a high to low and expand that off the low point to get a 65 to, expansions to the upside as well for targets. And that does sit us at about, she was like a million zeros and then whatever the number is. So, at 00057. All right. So I don't anticipate this overnight by any means, but I do target this region, in the somewhat nearish future, maybe the next few months here. It's like a 100% potential 200% move. There's an untapped monthly up here as well. But that all doesn't, start becoming relevant until we get up, above that region here. So you kind of have to start taking the risk down in these areas here, looking for your entries if you're looking for it. If you're already holding, then, just know we could potentially see some more downside. We really want to see, what is this level here? 3-3. So bunch of zeros, 3-3-3 claimed. And that's kind of the little line in the sand for the more upside to that 5-7, right? All right, let's take a look at that ETH versus BTC. So this potential, once again, harmonic pattern. So similar to how I was looking at XRP, right? It's got a potential, which is the key word, something that's setting up. And what I look for, is I try to identify these potentially ahead of time so that when you get to those levels, you're not like scrambling to be like, oh man, there was a bat there was a shark, there was whatever. Because this is the areas where, we can look to that will, potentially set us up for a big move. And this is a multi-year. I've actually been targeting this, box area for the better part of Q4 of 2023 all the way till now. So for the last, 15 months almost, right? So Q4 2023, by the way, was here. So we were trading all the way back up at like 0.06. And this has just been a slow little grind to the downside. All right. And honestly, I think that this is the pathway to the next altcoin season, right? And it may not be the altcoin season, it may not be whatever, but if we're going to see, like a really big move, at least this is what I've kind of formulated together in my analysis, is that this setup would set us up for a really nice move And, doesn't have to necessarily go all the way back up to this region here. There's a few targets of this, right? So you got the 382 and the B point. So, I mean, that almost always aligns somehow. And this is assuming that we come down. I think I got it down there. Yeah. At the base of this box, which is going to be an 886 retracement, right? So on the Fibonacci, and this is just a sequence of Fibonacci, right? So from the time we bottomed here to the top here, which was 2019 September to 2021 December, if we were to take a Fibonacci retracement, and once again, remember how I said, like, you box this area off, and if this is 0 and if this is 100, the pullback would come all the way back to 88.6. So 88% pullback. Okay. That's far past, a lot of people will tend to look for the 786. Once you lose that, it like gets a little fearful, but the 886 is a really powerful fib level that I think a lot of people, don't necessarily utilize, right? So, and generally that sets up one of these harmonics really well, because it's usually deep enough to where it's like past all the normal areas. It's just low to the point where you're almost coming back to the lows, and it's just like it just sets it up really nicely, right? So, and this pattern generally is a bullish pattern, okay, when it's completed. So it's bearish as hell to get there, obviously. But if we do come down to this and just kind of hear the neutrality, right? It's all about ifs and whats, right? But this has kind of been my roadmap to the next real altcoin season. And what I mean by that is like something we saw, like here, okay, or something you remember from like 2021 January to the summer of 2021, where like during that time frame, and I don't want to put it out there like Bitcoin's ripping, by the way, so that sweep of the low definitely is playing out. I don't want to put it in the sense of like guarantee. There's so many projects now. There are so many coins. It's like multi-million coins at this point because of all the Solana shitters, and it doesn't. I do think it dilutes the market to some degree, because obviously there's so much, so many projects and not enough like income, I guess you could say, right? There's not enough money to go around to pump all those. I don't know. It's just not like how it was back in 2017, where there was only 2,000 projects, if there is even that, and you only had an $800 billion market cap, which was not a lot, obviously, compared, but when it was only those few projects and the on ramps were tighter, and people weren't dropping random coins all left and right. It was just actual projects coming out. Whether they were going to do anything or not was the question, but it was a lot harder to just drop a cryptocurrency. Anyways, they ran a lot harder. 2021 still really only had about 20,000 projects, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong, but I'd like to say I remember looking at like the coin market cap, and it showed all the the coins that are at least on there, so I'm sure there was more on some of the decentralized exchanges like Sushi Swap and Pancake Swap and all that didn't make it there yet, right? But in theory there was only 20,000. I'd really like to say, because I remember it was 2,000 and 20,000 at the two times I really noted, and I think that was at the end of the bull run 2017, the end of the bull run 2021, and now there's 2.4 2.5 million, and it's just climbing, right? So you really do have to like pick some winners, and I think be a little bit more, I don't want to say greedy, but you just got to be a little bit more choosy on how you diversify, and like, when to take profits and stuff like that, which I think is something that a lot of people do not do, right? And the going meme is that, you have the, I'm going to take profit on this. And then you got the little devil on your shoulder, or the little guy behind you say, oh, but it could 10X, right? I'm quite opposite of that. I feel like I am aggressively taking profits all the time, at least on my spot bags, right? So because I'm almost in fear of quite the opposite. Like when I go to take profits on something, I'm not really worried about it could 10X or it could 20X. Sure could. My little devil on my shoulder says it could be cut in half. Like it could drop 50 to 90%. So that's just where my mind is these days. But yeah, overall, I think that this area on ETH versus BTC, which is, for anyone listening in, is 0.025 to 0.031, which we've come down close to that. And right now we're sitting at 0.33, by the way. So I think we're close to it. I think it's still maybe a few weeks away, however. And I do want to point out one thing. If we did see the bottom of this box, the 0.025, which completes this bat almost stupidly perfect, bullish bat once again, upon completion, a couple main targets. It's going to be the 382. We've got a year pivot right here, an untapped year pivot. So, there's going to be some stair steps along the way. It won't just be a straight up. Obviously, we've not even went straight down, right? So it's something we'll have to manage as we go, if we even get it. Big ifs all around. But you got some really nice targets up here. All right. And even if we do reverse from here, it doesn't have to come down here. Maybe, this pattern is technically, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's technically valid now, give or take. It would be perfect here. And there's some key levels down here, right? There's an untapped quarterly level here. There's a yearly naked point of control here. I mean, there's just some reasoning, confluence, I guess, better word, for why we could see these areas here. But I do want to point out the reason why I say, like, even though we're getting a pump right now, a push up right now on Bitcoin, and even if we push up to the levels I mentioned at the beginning of the video on Bitcoin, back to like, 98K, 102K, maybe we make a new all-time high even on Bitcoin in the next few weeks here. If we get a pullback again, right? This chart at least is signifying, and mind you, we could totally get a push up first and then down. We could push up to the yearly pivot before we get this pullback, right? So it's just things, once again, I'll be updating this along the way. So, tune in for this daily, I suppose. But if you get this drop, it's 23%, okay, on ETH versus BTC. And I don't just imagine it would be ETH falling and Bitcoin pumping, right? This would probably be a similar situation to like last September, July time. And let's just look at that, because we saw from July, let's just say August 1st. August 1st to that August 5th drop. Was it here? Yeah, give or take. In that realm, I guess I'm just trying to showcase what the last like big 20% drop looked like. And I just think back to that time. Obviously, we've had some more, but that was a pretty decent little move here from, I'll just point out July 16th to August 5th, which we remember was like the drop to like $2,100 ETH. Altcoins got hit and hammered, right? So we may still have a hammering time here, but this is littered with my alerts. I'm even going to triple stack them here. Because for me, I do think that, this would set us up for the move. And a move like this, if we get it, I mean, you're talking, bounce out of here just to the weekly pit or yearly average here is 70% move to the 382, which is our target of this bat. So this, I wouldn't get overly aggressive on the gold pocket and all this stuff here. Granted, this is a really big area. So if we do flip this, I will be looking for that. But I'm just looking for this move right here. Bounce from that region up to this target, B point 382. That's a 93% move on ETH versus BTC. I wouldn't imagine that would be right like in a day, like you're probably talking a few weeks, few months. It would be something probably along the lines of this, right? Let's just look at like a 90% time frame. April of 21 to May. So in that last little stretch, that was actually only a month. Wow. Back in 2021, that was before the the drop in Bitcoin, 2021 summer, but that was when like kind of all the altcoins were really popping at the end. So we'll see how it goes. This area more than anything, I'm not really going to put a time frame around it. At first, I did note that December had a potential for it, and then obviously the Bitcoin dominance slightly aligned with that. All right, I was targeting for Bitcoin dominance at this time right here. This was November, to come up and tag this box. I'll take that off for now. And we front ran it, right? So in reality is like we don't necessarily have to hit that region. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any questions real quick. Sorry. Let's see, we got a bunch of new viewers in. How's everybody doing? Crypto Relapse, how you doing, my friend? Man, I love the name. Relapsing on that crypto. Yeah, so dominance, back in November was just creeping up. Same thing as that ETH versus BTC chart, right? For the longest time, just been targeting down on ETH BTC, up on the dominance, right? So it's kind of, when this chart's going up, the altcoins don't perform as well. Doesn't mean that they can't go up. It's just they're not going to outperform. We want to see that drop, right? And that's the times where, okay, this was a good example here, right? So when that last ETH versus BTC pumped like 90% to the upside, look at how much dominance dropped in that same time frame. This was that April to May. It was actually a really quick drop. So I kind of hope we get a little bit more. And I can hope and pray and wish all I want, but I guess we could very well. We know how this market goes, right? When you take the stairs up, a lot of times we get that elevator down just like this. So maybe when we hit that level on ETH BTC, you just get this huge move up, and which is why I like to hammer on being prepared for it so much ahead of time, because sometimes you don't have time, right, to make those choices. When the market really starts moving, these things get like popping so fast, it's crazy. But for now, I do think that I think that we have a recipe to run this back, right? So, and that changes, of course, if we start losing for dominance. I'm looking at dominance for anybody not watching, just listening. Looking for dominance for support to lose is 56.84%, right? We're currently at 58%. So if you lose that region, then I would say, maybe we're putting in a little bit of a downtrend right here, and we'll continue, and then everything will continue up and progress, right? Otherwise, I think the dominance is probably going to come back. We front ran my key levels, and not that not that my levels mean anything, but there's some key regions here, where we really didn't hit anything of note, in my opinion, aside from just, some trends, maybe the highs here. And by all means, that could be where we topped out. But in my opinion, I think we at least push back up to the 60, which is a new monthly volume target. And then also we've got a quarterly and a 6-month volume target, as well as a trend base. This is not the natural gold pocket. This is a trend-based gold pocket. So I've kind of got this little box area here. And as well, we've got a potential butterfly pattern, right? So once again, just looking to see if it gets up there. Huge bearish reversal if we do, right? You're talking, if we were to make our way up to this region and run it, that would be a good sign for altcoins. It's just going to not be fun for this little stretch right here, which generally, get people really worked up and afraid. And, you can see the sentiment right now even is everyone's beaten up, right? I think that most would consider this bull run very, very taxing and very hard on the altcoins for holders. And, one thing I always kind of try to point out is this, for me personally, by the way, I think that the 4-year cycle is going to get blasted this time around, but that's just my opinion at the moment. It's not broken at the moment, I guess, depending on how you view it. But I think that is going to be something that hurts people if it already hasn't. And but I find it comical at the same time, because if anyone is in that camp of like 4-year cycle idea, if you were to look back, the altcoins really didn't start running well until 2021 January time, like at all. Obviously it's January of 2025 now, where if you're looking at the whole 4-year deal, and 2017 was the same way, right? 2017 January is actually when I entered the space. And if you look back on everything, like it wasn't like it was a straight up line from there. I mean, it was like a starting point almost. So when I hear others say like, oh man, this has been so hard, and it's just like, it's funny, because if you were really truly in the camp of a 4-year cycle, you would just look at it like the altcoins haven't even begun to run, right? They've obviously had moves, and in the past we saw things like Chainlink pumping in the slower time, like, and I bring that up in the sense of like, I think Chainlink pumped like 50x back in like the 2020 time frame, when we had the Rona drop and all that. It was kind of one of the better performers, but it was like one of the few. And then you had a few other ones, and then you had the small caps kind of popping off, which I think that AI agents and things like that are our current day small caps. And obviously they just took a hit. We'll take a look at virtuals too. And when the small caps get running, by the way, and usually it's not, look at that, baby. Look at that sweep and run, boy. Sweep and run, y'all. This is why, like, once again, it's just good to have a clear mind and just kind of view the data, as it's coming. Once again, I don't know what news is dropping today, if there was any. I don't attest any move in the market to any news, right? I know that a lot of people will get like up in arms about that and debate it, and say that, how can you say that when, Bitcoin just dropped at exactly at 8:30 when the CPI data gets released. And that's true. I will say that the timing is usually impeccable. But generally, the moves that I'm anticipating are wrapped around that, right? So I'm already prepared to see and jump on things as they come. So for me today, the sweep of these lows was the key. Do I know that 86 and 87 is there? Yes. I don't know which way the market's going to go, of course. But, what did I say before I started covering all those other altcoins right then? We had that sweep. We closed 15, 30 minutes. More likely that we were going to run it to at least London high. Really the weekly pivot today, this is a now daily target, in my opinion, because of the Asia high. All right. Meaning you saw how we started in New York and we had you have London high untapped, Asia high untapped. And when we start by taking lows, you're likely to run the highs. And I brought that up earlier where it's like, had we started the New York session up at these highs and you ran these highs here and then we ran the low, I would say it's more likely we would just continue down. Right. And vice versa. If we run these highs up to this region here, now that we've taken the lows, I would say it's more likely we continue. You really have to take it all into consideration. There's so much confluence that's wrapped around it, all that good stuff, right? So, and even though the quarterly pivot, that rascal is still there, it's like the 17th time that we've probably front ran it and got to bounce back, right? I still imagine we will come down to that. And that's in the grand scheme of when I'm looking at the dominance continuing higher and when I'm looking at ETH versus BTC continuing lower, if I'm honest, the true blue move here would be something along these lines where we just took all those range lows and in theory you'd want to see, not want to, I'd want to see the all-time high, claimed, and we just move on from here. And maybe it does. Once again, I'm always willing to change and adapt to new information. And that's just one thing I think most are hard pressed to do. So I'm not married to anything. And when, I have my mid to long-term play ideas and I have my daily ideas and I have my weekly strategies and I have all these things. But once again, I'm doing this all day, every day. I understand that most people are not. So the information I try to produce for entertainment, obviously, is designed around understanding the day-to-day moves without trying to, freak out and think like, oh my gosh, I need to sell all my crypto, wrapped around, trying to showcase how and why the market may move today so that you don't overly freak out at lows and overly get too excited at highs. And for your long-term bags, obviously, like I said, most people are not, myself included, I'm not every week, moving around my entire portfolio by any means. I'm looking for key levels to, buy those mid to long-term plays in, and I'm looking to scale out at some, key levels above. And then once again, I'm either in some cash for a crash, or at times I've taken some big risks, which one I think is coming up soon, where I'll exit pretty heavily, maybe once or twice a year, everything, a lot of things, like 75%, but not like every month or every week by any means, right? So, but once or twice, like a good example was when I got out of 75% of most of my positions last March at $70,000 Bitcoin, and more so it was at $4,000 ETH. And mind you, you're talking height of hype. It was all the news, everything, what could go wrong? ETFs were exploding. BlackRock is buying, the inflows, the Sailor, like all the stuff, right? But ETH put up a very negative pattern that I had identified well in advance, and I took the risk on it. And once again, like it was something I didn't know would come to fruition, but I just had to, for myself, I tried to protect it from a 50% haircut, and I did that pretty well, right? So I ended up selling out a $4,000 ETH, waited till 2190 to buy back in, and it took 6 months to get there. And I also, risked the market running away while I still had 25%, allocated at least. So if it did, I was still along for the ride, and I was cool with it, right? Like I parted ways with the idea of like, it could 10x. My bigger fear was it could drop 50%, and we did. I bring that up because I think that we have a similar situation on our hands here coming up soon. And especially if we front run this right now and we run it to all-time highs, which I think we have a case for. Yeah, I think we're setting up for a sizable retracement around those regions, even if it is just back to here. That would be like 22%. That really wouldn't be my main fear at that point, though. I think we'd get a deeper retracement around there. But once again, that's yet to come. I've explained that a little bit more in the Discord, and I'll be kind of putting that a little bit more in detail here as we come up. But next coming weeks, as much as it seems like it won't happen, I still target the highs. And this little setup right here is just a really, really good look at the moment. Let me take off all this session data. Right. So, I mean, you're talking I'll just go ahead and almost like section this off. Let's just pretend like this was our overall range, in a sense. And what did we do? We came up to here. You swept the highs. Okay. Came back, lost it, right? Boom, boom, boom. Came down. Now we just swept all the lows. At least running back, like I said, previous week high, maybe 104. There's a couple targets up here. If we do get to these levels here, though, I would imagine we probably take a stab at the all-time high. And that's just, how we're at lows right now. So I have to target that. Granted, yes, it's only, 10, 15% off the high, and we could totally roll over. I feel like the going idea is that that's the case. And generally when the echo chamber is heavy fear, we get the opposite. So I'm still targeting the highs. That's kind of where it is. Granted, I'm not negative or naive to the fact of, 87, 86K kind of below us. Like I said, that potential ABC correction, is definitely valid, right? We got that A, B, and potentially a C down to here. We might have just came and put it right here, though. I just kind of stack a little confluence around that 86 and 87K because obviously there's key levels there. But for what it's worth, I mean, that is, potentially what we just did. ABC took the lows. As long as you're holding that, I mean, you got room to run now, in my opinion. At least back to some of these range highs, potentially the all-time high, and then kind of reevaluate. Is this a margarita? Margaret T. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to say margarita. I thought I said Margarita Anna, Santa Margarita. Margaret T. I hope I said that correct. Says 100% agree with the 4-year cycle. How is your best guess how this cycle will turn out this time around? So my biggest analysis overall is wrapped around the housing market cycle, and I bring that up. And when I say that, I almost want to blanket that by stating like the obviously overall market. So housing, crypto now, and the stocks. But the housing market, is something that can actually be back tested for 300 years plus and has a very distinct 18 to 20 year cycle. And I say 18 to 20 years, which sounds, kind of vague, but it just kind of is what it is, right? And it's got very big averages, which mean that sometimes you'll see, I actually have this set up. Let's just end this video with this, because I know that as much as I feel like I've covered this, I feel like a lot, even in my group sometimes, I don't think that people understand what I mean by the housing market cycle. So let me end it with this really quickly. I think it's this one. It is. All right. So the housing market cycle goes in 18 to 20 year cycles like this, right? And you get generally 7 to 10 years up, you get a black swan event right here. You get 2 to 4 years of consolidation that which is met with fear, uncertainty, doubt, high interest rates, high inflation. Everybody expects a recession at the low here. And then you get, 4 to 7 year just face melting rally to the upside. And mind you, it's 4 to 7 years, right? So this is housing, not crypto quite yet, but let me kind of walk you through it. And full credit for the housing market to Phil Anderson. I think there's another gentleman, but Phil Anderson is a gentleman who wrote a book, what is it called? Secrets of Real Estate and Banking or something like that. And this is where I kind of came across it like years and years ago. And 2020 was the reason why I would just never look to news ever again. And this is why, right? So 7 to 10 years up, black swan event right here, 2 to 4 years consolidate, high interest rates, high inflation. Everybody expects a recession, face melting rally to the upside. in the 50s, right? Had a run in the 60, one time frame right here, Black Swan event, Cuban Missile Crisis. A couple years go by. It ended in high interest rates, high inflation. Everybody expected a recession, runs it up to top out around 1972, get a few years of recovery, you restart in 75, 7 to 10 year run up here, 81. Black Swan event was our Cuban Missile Crisis, 2 to 4 years of consolidation, high interest rates, high inflation. Everybody expected a recession. You get a blow off top to about 89, cool off, restart 1993. These next two iterations should be very familiar to anyone under 30 at least. 1993, we start this off again, 7 to 10 years up. 2001, Black Swan event, 9/11, 2 to 4 years go by. 2003, really. High interest rates, high inflation. Everybody expected a recession. You got 5 more years of upside. Basically, it says 2007 was the high, but we kind of topped around 2007. 2008 was really when everybody thinks back to it. And we rolled over into the current housing market, which once again is going to be encompassing the stock market and now crypto. So crypto was born 2009, right? So right here. So while, yes, we only have the 4-year cycles to go off of, my larger thesis here is that, and don't get it wrong, we could see 50 and 60% pullbacks. I'm not saying that, the markets are all just going to continue straight up, but I do think we got more upside coming overall for everything. And this will kind of almost explain, or it'll kind of at least make some sense of the recent years, right? Because 2011, we restarted this housing market trend. 2009, crypto's born. Really, 2011 is when you start having even data points for Bitcoin on charts and stuff like that. But yeah, you got a 7 to 10 year run up, Black Swan event, baby. What was it? Oh, Roni. 2 to 4 years go by. So basically 3.5, really. And I made the last real big update on this in September of 2023. So that was right here, right? So 2020 hits, 2 to 4 years of sideways consolidation, fear, uncertainty, wars are breaking out. What did we end 2023 with in Q3, right before Q4? High interest rates, high inflation. Everybody expected 2024 to be a recession. And what has 2023 Q4 and 2024 been? A face melting rally of all kinds. Stock markets all-time high over all-time high. Crypto obviously is included in that now. A housing market necessarily hasn't made new highs across the board, but it's holding well. And I anticipate that to continue towards 2026 to 2029, maybe 20. And this is the hard part, right? Is it comes into a place where the years are going to make a difference, right? You don't want to be caught off or whatever you do, anything. This is all entertainment, right? What I know what I'm doing is that this next coming years here is where I'm looking to scale out of things pretty heavily and prepare for, honestly, a Great Depression 2.0. And 2029 is an interesting time frame because that's the 100-year cyclical anniversary of the Great Depression, which is why I think that, and on top of just how everything is right now, when you talk about an everything bubble, I just think that that time frame will be pretty wild. Don't know, yet to be seen. Not married to it. For years I've been targeting and analyzing this simple outlook here. And honestly, I thought this would come in 2018 when we were having some more difficult the leader at the time, who's our leader again now, was having some interesting back and forth with another country, right? So I always put it that way. 2018, right? So, but 2020, came in. Sure enough, was that time frame, the window. Everything made sense. If you even look at the presidential election to some degree, which I'm not going to get too political, but you had this nice huge high, with someone who is thought of to be the person that brought everything to a certain level. In my opinion, I think that this time frame was written in the stars, that we were going to have this 4-year period. So you slid out one guy, you slid in another guy, and then you slide in this guy again to have that last little rally in all the markets. Because one thing is for sure is when people feel comfortable with their leadership and all that, what do they start doing? They're going to start spending money. They're going to keep getting into debt. They're going to get that new car regardless of the price. Even that, inflation and all that is still going to be here, but people are going to be a little bit more willing to do so. Maybe minimum wage, pops up in whatever the case is. Obviously, I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm just looking at simple data points. And one thing I want to point out is it's not this simple, obviously, but the years, and the events and the things that led to it and the black swans and it's just an interesting concept. So for me, to answer that question on how I think this bull run, I think that the idea of the 4-year, deal is something I don't touch on, and I don't get involved with. And even this, I'm not trying to get married to like I'm holding everything till 2029. But in the next coming years here, I think we're just going to ebb and flow. You just have to really look at this market as a market. The stock market, for example, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but you don't hear everybody looking to the stock market like it's like this guaranteed 4-year or 10-year or 15-year bull run, because it's always what it's done, right? And I could be totally wrong. I don't really get too involved with the stock market, but crypto has just been drilled into everyone's mind. And I say this in the sense of like when I look at my biggest gauge, some people say it's Twitter, but I think if you go to Facebook and look at a cryptocurrency community or whatever, that is the utmost retail. And I'm a retail guy. We're all retail guys, right? And girls. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with somebody who's coming in new, but when you are coming in new at highs like this, right, you don't know what is going on. And I think people rush into things. And the first few things that they're going to look to and find is this bull run is almost over. You got 6 to 12 months. It's a guarantee. Get your altcoins now. I see the same things over and over again. $1,000 today is going to be $100K in a few weeks. And maybe I was even that guy at some point, right? Like without even realizing it. But I just see that. And I just feel like, I don't think this year, 2025, is just a guaranteed up only kind of thing. I do more so. I foresee us, even though I see us making a new high, I still see a higher probability that we get a huge correction first before the remainder of this year, maybe ends up pretty, and maybe we start at a certain point and we end higher, but in the middle, just like we've seen, year over year, even 2023, I'm sorry, 23? I kind of highlighted it here. 2023 and 4 zooming out, like, yeah, it's been great, right? It's just been nothing but up only, boom, bull flag and all. But like, if you lived out these time frames, they weren't easy, man. Like, this one right here, this is actually where I made that video at. This was August and September of 2023. This is when things were very scary, honestly. And people were thinking, we might see back to whatever. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because, I just think that we're in for moves like this, right? To where like at the end of the day, yeah, the year ended high, but there's going to be some tomfoolery, every step of the way. It's like people are so afraid that the bull run's over, and which for good measure, like this market drops 90% when it does, and it ain't fun. So you don't, you want to protect yourself from that, but protecting yourself from those things is coming in and being patient and strategizing and coming in at ideal areas, and not FOMOing, not fear, panic selling, I guess. And the other thing is none of us know what's going to happen. So could we top out here and completely just roll over? Sure. But yeah, for me, I anticipate this year to end the question on how I think the bull run is going to end. I don't think I'll even consider that. I'm just looking at the next major moves in crypto. And does that mean, for me, it's more so I think we see a move back to the highs and then reevaluate if we start holding. But I think it's a larger reality that we see a pretty big correction around these levels. And whether that is already underway, A, B, back at this area here, back at this area here, or back at this area here. So, with that being said, for me personally, because of how I've analyzed this whole ordeal, is like I wouldn't be getting into anything in these regions, but I'm already allocated, right? So I know that for someone new to this market, it's a hard time, because there are things that are down, right? Where you could look at like virtuals, for example. I think somebody asked about that. Let's just take a quick peek. I've been looking for the entry on virtuals, and it's kind of there, I think. So, there's definitely things where, and if we get this push out of Bitcoin, then, short term, near term, maybe virtuals pushes up 100% in the coming weeks. But then you got to be kind of aggressive on taking some profit there, or just realizing that once again, maybe you're in, all right, cool, you're up 100%, you're at risk of a 50% retrace at some point. Like it's just a lot of moving parts, and there's just no right answer, I guess, is the best thing to put. But okay, I think I've twisted your ears long enough. I'm going to head out of here. I hope you all enjoyed this morning's stream. I know I did. As always, if you're interested in joining the CVO Trading Discord, I do have, let's see, I do have a link in the bio below. It's a 7-day free trial, completely risk-free. I do pretty much updates 24/7 in there. Yeah, aside from that, I'll see you all in the next video, and I hope you all have a great remainder of your, Monday here, and we'll do it all again tomorrow. So till then, everybody, cheers.